All right. So today I am here with Megan Moffett, and Megan is the Special Needs Ministry Director at Calvary Baptist Church. So glad you could join today, Megan.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious, could you tell us a bit about your background? What called you into special needs ministry, and how did you find your way to Calvary?
Well, we've been members here at Calvary for about 3 years now. We'd moved from a small town and got plugged in here. The church itself has just been amazing, and even just with my own children. My background is in special education. I taught special
Mhm.
ed for years, and then I'm a licensed behavior analyst as well.
Okay.
So I was working full time in a clinical outpatient setting, just spending all of my time, energy, uh, doing that type of work. And
Mhm.
I actually got into my place here at Calvary from volunteering. We
Mhm.
had a special needs ministry here, which was really just part time. And I volunteered for our special needs vacation Bible school. And at that VBS, they announced that they were going to hire the church as a whole felt the need to hire someone full time for this
Mhm.
position to open it up to the community and help grow using the resources. And that's just, God steps in, prayer begins, and me and my family have a large family, have 5 children.
Oh, wow.
We just started praying on that, and here I am. So it's been quite a blessing. A lot of the women who had poured into the ministry before I have taken it on full time are still here. So they're always here to
Mhm.
counsel me and, provide extra input.
Absolutely. Well, that is great to hear. And I have two questions and threads I wanted to pull on. So you mentioned your background as, behavioral assessment therapist and stuff. How does, that is a very valuable and unique skill set to have. How does that what are some ways that helps you out in the ministry environment?
Well, really, as a whole, just trying to relate to the parents, what they're dealing with on a regular basis, even
Mhm.
within our sin law, community here. It's still a small special needs community as far as who
Mhm.
you know. So being able to provide that personal input of and also the professional aspect of what they could be needing or looking for as a family for their child or adult has been really helpful. And then also, of course, just being able to adapt lessons as needed, or, being able to gauge who can go into full inclusion during our Sunday
Mhm.
school lessons or Wednesday night activities versus who might need a little bit more sensory sensitivity.
Absolutely. Awesome. And yeah, so that is very, very good to know. And uh, yeah, when you got into your role at Calvary, you just kind of mentioned it. It's like, hey, we gotta uh, plan different lessons gauged on uh, the sensory needs and such. So I'm curious, what are
Mhm.
some of your tips for creating engaging experiences at your church?
Well, as far as like our Sunday, Wednesday night activities, we really focus on tailoring each class based on what the individual needs are. So,
Mhm.
just coming on board, we had a little bit broader classroom sizes, so we narrowed those down based on age, and then
Absolutely.
that's when I kind of got plugged in with Orange and finding something that worked for my preteen class. What
Mm.
worked for that preteen class, so which is ages for us is 10 to 13, didn't
Mhm.
work for, ages 10 and under. So finding
Mm.
what they were dealing with in their lives at school, that has been really helpful. For our
Mhm.
preteen classroom, we created a different area. It was looked a little older, wasn't in our children's world um, area.
Mhm.
We had some their fidget stools. So
Mhm.
different types of seating. They really enjoyed that because that's something too. As special needs children get older and they transition, if there's not a place for them to transition that also looks typical to their peers,
Hmm.
then you kind of lose that energy. And we always want them to be excited to come to church and excited to engage in activities with each other. So just creating those unique places for them to meet. Same thing with opportunities. Every special needs individual can do anything that everyone else can do. It just might
Yeah.
be a little different. So taking that
Hmm.
into consideration when we have events has been important.
Yeah, absolutely. And pulling on that, Megan, what are some of the events you've had that you have had like the most success with and most excitement with at Calvary?
Well, just as soon as I started, within a couple of months, we hosted the Night to Shine event with the Tim
Awesome.
Tebow Foundation. That
Mhm.
was the most amazing event. Uh, we had 200 guests,
Oh,
400
wow.
volunteers. It was an amazing night, just for all, and we're still seeing the effects of having an event like that and the engagement for the community. We have a large group home community here that even
Hmm.
attends worship now and then class on Sunday also. And so they
Mm.
all come from those things. We just started having respite nights, and that's
Okay.
open to the community. So
Mm.
families are able to come, bring their children, and then, have a date night. Or some parents just want to go to Target and have coffee
Yeah,
alone.
absolutely.
So just being able to provide those opportunities. This summer, we'll have special needs vacation Bible school. Um,
Hmm.
and that is one thing that I think is different. A lot of my background was with early intervention and children. So making sure that we include not only children, all the way up to adults.
Mm.
It's a very wide range, but if you have the right group of volunteers willing to pour into each age group, that works out great.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, that's great. A lot of churches in our community have here in Indianapolis have done Night to Shine. So, love that. And yeah, well, okay, a couple more questions there. So, you mentioned, hey, your special needs ministry is, investing in that as a church is just huge for the community in general. So I'm curious, what are some tips and advice you would offer for someone looking to invest more time and resources into their special needs ministry? Like they're at square one, what would you, advise them to get to square two and beyond?
I mean, I think the key is just to start, even if you just have two individuals, start with
Hmm.
two. Grow as you can. Don't be afraid. Excuse me. Don't be afraid to start small. You know,
Hmm.
um, I know our first respite night, we only had two children attend. Well, that's okay. Then we'll do the
Absolutely.
next one, and it will continue. Um, Reaching out to people in the community. There's lots of organizations. There's not lots of nonprofit organizations as well that are interested in pairing and partnering with you. So being able to say, hey, we want to invite you. Do you mind helping provide some support for that? Or do you have some volunteers? Parents are more than happy to have their kids come and engage and be with their peers. And they're more than likely, more times than not, they're happy to stay as long as
Hmm.
their child's included and get to experience those things. So that's where I would say start is just take the first step and start small. Even if your budget is small, your volunteers, if you reach out to the right people, they will come.
Absolutely. Could not agree more. And that's a good segue into, recruiting volunteers. So that is always something every ministry leader is working on. I'm curious, since you started originally as a volunteer before transitioning into a staff role, how does that kind of shape the way you look at recruiting volunteers or like recruiting staff from your volunteer base?
Well, I know I tried to, because I was a busy mom and I worked full
Mm.
time. So I really tried to make sure that my volunteers have a lot of time to rest, that they're very
Mm.
appreciated. Maybe that's in small tokens, gifts, text messages. I also make sure that none of my volunteers, of course, this is depending on the numbers that you have, none of my
Yeah.
volunteers serve more than once a month. So
Mm.
we have on every Sunday, we have 5 different special needs classes.
Mhm.
So if you, each one of that group of volunteers, they only serve once a month because I want them to have time to be poured into and not just be concerned about pouring out. That's what they say, is that you
Absolutely.
can't pour from an empty cup. So that is the biggest thing. I know even just transitioning from a volunteer into the staff is also being cautious of scheduling. We
Mhm.
try and work with school breaks. A lot of my volunteers are teachers. They
Mhm.
love children, they love special needs. I
Mhm.
have some special needs parents whose children have now grown up and they would
Mm.
like to pour into other special needs families. Um,
Okay.
so that's a good outlet as well.
Absolutely. So yeah, well, some fantastic tips there, Megan. And aside from recruiting volunteers, what are some of your other ministry goals for the near and long term future?
Well, I think long term, just reaching out to the community, getting more community involvement is really something that's near to my heart. Right now, we have a very solid, teen and adult group. So reaching those
Hmm.
special needs families of young children. I
Mm.
know even for our regular preschool ministry, that's hard. When you have small children or infants, it's difficult to get up and get there, but it's oh so worth it. And same thing goes for our
Absolutely.
special needs children. Um, it can be 10 times more difficult, but
Hmm.
anything that we can do to provide that support and help ease that is really important. So, long term, I think that is just something looking at growing and providing more opportunities for my volunteers to learn about special needs, and partnering with others. I know in our area here in Louisiana, we have Joni and Friends has just really
Mm.
gotten started, and
Hmm.
they're doing a marriage retreat and a week-long event for special needs families.
Mm.
So getting the church involved with that and saying, hey, let's don't be afraid to take special needs family fishing. We have a large senior adult group. Who doesn't love to fish? This is a great opportunity. um, and so I think just moving forward, it's just one step at a time here. Just slowly growing our numbers, reaching out, letting them know that we're here and we're ready to pour into your family and your children, with the love of Christ.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, could not agree more there and appreciate those insights, Megan. So I want to shift gears a bit and, talking about some of the values you and the rest of the team at Calvary go by. Like, what are some values that your team operates by and that you personally operate by?
Well, I mean, our goal here at Calvary is to make everyone a devoted follower of Christ, and for them to go
Mhm.
out and make more disciples. So
Mm.
that's our job, being able to pour into our leaders, whether they're volunteer leaders, life group leaders, children's ministry, all of those things. We try and pour into our volunteers, give them the tools they need to go out and tell others about God and share their love of Christ. And
Mhm.
all that comes back full term. We see that happening. It's growing in our worship service, and whether it's music ministry, that's our goal. It's just we lean on each other, we
Absolutely.
support each other. I know even yesterday, we had something going on at church, and we have an adult Bible study on Tuesdays for special needs.
Mhm. Awesome.
And so I called our Chi Alpha leader who is in charge of high school and college, and I said, hey, I have a really large group. Can we come into Chi Alpha and play basketball and games and do this to get started? And he's like, sure, doors are open to you always. And that's key, is that, our team really supports each other. And if someone needs help in a different ministry area, we're trying to figure out how we can just collaborate and come together.
Perfect. So yeah, well, that is great to hear, and the collaboration among all the different teams in your church is so important. So I'm
It
just
is.
absolutely, well, appreciated you sharing so much, Megan. What is just some, final other advice you'd have for kidsmen leaders?
Well, I would say, just reach out, look for any resources that you have. I know, having been a teacher and in a different field prior to coming to the ministry world, knowing that I don't have to completely recreate the wheel. Someone else
Mhm.
might have an idea or an event that really worked in their community. So trying to reach out to those other ministry leaders and other organizations and saying, hey, what worked for you? Don't be
Mhm.
afraid to ask questions. I very often ask my families of my special needs children, hey, what can I do for you? What do you need? I'm thinking about having this event. Is it something that you feel would be, worth it to your family? Um,
Mhm.
because that's what we're here for, is to fill those needs and provide them those opportunities to grow. So that would be a key thing. It's just don't be afraid to ask, learn. Knowledge is power, and use that power in prayer.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, could not agree more with that, Megan, and appreciate you taking the time to share so much today. And we're rooting for you and all that's ahead.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.